Okay, so now we're going to get into Piper's story. So Piper, her registered name is Firewater Dynamite. She is a granddaughter of Firewater Flit and a granddaughter of Daco Dynamite, which are amazing horses all the way around. She's got a lot of run in her, which is rightly so. She was bred for barrels and she was bred for roping, and dang it, I have run. The only horse I didn't ride that I'm going to tell all these stories is Belle. But Piper, we started when she was 2, and then I think it was when she was 3 or 4, I sent her off to a trainer, and then I got her back into, I think it was in 2000. Okay. The trainer had her for 2 years, I believe. And I went down and get her because I'm like, why isn't she running barrels? Why isn't she doing anything? They just didn't feel like she was ready. And then, kind of came to a head. So she came back home, and then I ran barrels on her. And let me tell you, the girl can run. But she's a really solid horse all the way around. She's always been that way. We had her since she was a weanling. She loves people. She just loves life. Like, she's a very happy horse. Her first foal we still have. His name is Jess, and he is actually sired by the same stallion that Belle's babies are sired by. We live full covered her, and that her baby, who now is 2, is going to be a big boy. He looks like a rope horse. Super cool. We're going to start him. Get another super quiet minded. You can tell he's going to be athletic. I call him Lumpy because I don't know why, but that 2-year-old is just like any other toddler. He is into everything. He's got lumps and bumps and bruises, and we let him be horses, so this was part of it. So Piper was AI'd to Turnpike's wagon, and I went with Turnpike's wagon, Fallon Taylor and Alec McRae's paint stallion that was on the racetrack and then went into the barrels, and he has all these maturity incentives for his offspring, and that was a big thing for me. Plus, he's a pretty cool black and white paint. That's pretty cool. So the babies are going to be registered paint, right? So Piper, we AI'd her, and her first foal, she actually held out, and she did go like 2 weeks late, right? So we're like, okay, you kind of track to see where these girls are. Sometimes if they're early, they always go early. If they're always late, they might always go late. You just kind of like figure out your mares after so many years, right? So anyway, so her and Belle were like head to head. We knew one of them was going to go first. We just didn't know which. So Belle went first on May 10th, and then May 12th, that would have been Sunday, which was Mother's Day, but it was early morning, so it ended up being actually Monday morning, right? It was 3 a.m. and remember, if you watched Belle's foaling story, I had to be out in the barn every 2 hours because I was milking Belle and bottle feeding Hero. And so I went out and I did the feeding, and so you're up every 2 hours and you're in the barn, and you're in the barn for like 20 minutes at least. So anyway, I noticed our Piper was standing in front of Belle's stall. Cho and Vic were kind of off by themselves. They weren't all together. And I noticed Piper was just like, she had that look in her eye, and then she was sweating. And she was all sweated out. I'm like, okay, you're in labor. And this is like 3 a.m. Okay, you're in labor. Perfect. I'll keep an eye on you. I'm just going to go in the house, laid down, and had my phone out, and I was watching her. And it usually progresses fairly fast, right? So like 3:30, she kind of lays down, but she gets up. But then I noticed Vic kept going over to her, which is really strange because typically when the mares lay down, the other girls will just stand off. And what I've noticed my girls will do, they'll stand off and just like be there, but not intervene. And Vic kept on going over to her and smelling her, like smelling her butt, and just kept on messing with her. That's what I thought, right? So around 4:00 a.m., I go out, and I was like, okay, Vic, I'm gonna lock you up in one of the small stalls, so you just leave her alone so she can, do her business, right? And I go out there, and at this point, Piper's at the other end of the arena, and I go back and I move her tail, and I see a nose. And I'm telling you guys, I didn't see just a little bit of the nose. I'm like halfway up the horse's face. You see the white, it's a white blaze, and I'm like, I said adult words. I was like, this is a big deal. No front feet, a nose halfway up, not just a little tip of the nose. I'm like, I could see this baby has a blaze. And so I'm like, I immediately dial the vet clinic, patch over to the emergency vet. I leave her a message. It's Jess, Dr. Moki, Dr. Moki saved Piper's first baby. Let's go into that story. So Piper's first baby was born. Within 24 hours, the baby was pooping blood. Why? Right? So this is back in 23. So we get the baby, haul it into the vet clinic. Dr. Moki does IV stuff. Saves his life. So Piper's first baby, right? Saves his life. Piper's in the vet clinic for like a week. It was first week of August. And we named that baby Jess after Dr. Moki, because if it wouldn't have been for her, he wouldn't have survived. Now that happened over at my mom's arena. We don't know, because you guys got to remember, if there's something on that bag of the mare, like bacteria, blah, 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 anything bad, say, and the babies go get their first milk, that colostrum, that first milk, whatever's on that bag, manure, whatever, gets ingested into their system, and it's like a highway straight to their body, right? So if it's something bad, it is in their body like that. There's no filtration, because the way their intestines work, like they're highly absorbing everything when that first milk comes, that first 12, 24 hours. So Jess is my vet that I'm calling at 4 a.m. with this baby with his nose out with no front feet. So I immediately have the phone on one hand, and I'm shoving the nose back into Piper, because I know that we have to shove the head back in and try to find the front feet and pull them out. I know this already. I know. And of course, the vets have their words for this. And don't ask me to say it, because I know it's called full something. Wrong presentation, that's what it is, right? So I'm immediately shoving the baby's head back in as I'm calling the vet. She doesn't answer, but I leave her a message, because that's what we do, right? And I'm immediately calling my daughter, because she lives like a mile up. And I'm calling my daughter, because my daughter is my right hand, meaning if I need something, especially in the horse world, she's one I call, because she's usually fairly close. If she's not there, I call one of my sons, but usually I call my daughter. And so I call and call and call and call and call, and she finally gets on they're sleeping. It's 4 a.m. I don't, and I'm like, hey, I need your help. I need you down here like now, because we got a bad situation. So she comes down, and then in the middle of this, Dr. Jess called me back, and she goes, okay, I got your message. Because I explained to her what was going on in the message, so she knew. She's like, I got your message. It'll take me at least 45 minutes to get there, because she lives across the river. She's on call. She's got to come in, go to the vet clinic, and then get everything she needs, and then come out. And I'm like 5 miles north of town. I'm like, yep, no problem at all. So I start walking Piper, and Allison helps me walk Piper, and my dog helps me walk Piper. So I have healers, and I have a miniature red heeler, and he helped essentially keep her moving because she wanted to lay down. Of course she wants to lay down, right? And I have a round bill in there, and we're literally just walking laps. And Dr. Jess says, maybe just try to push it back in. Like push it back in, see if you can get everything out. Every time I would push, she would push harder against me. So I'm like, Allison, let's just keep her walking. I know she went down and laid once in the middle of this, but we were able to get her back up, and we just kept her walking. And I told her, I'm like, girl, Piper, you just got to work with me. You have to keep walking. You have to wait for Dr. Jess to get here. You have to give the vet time to get here. So we just walked. We walked and we walked and we walked and we walked. And I think I know it was before 5:30, but Dr. Jess gets here and she goes, okay. So she goes and she tries to sedate Piper, which she sedates her and she goes down, but Piper's still awake enough that every time Dr. Moki goes in to try to maneuver the full, Piper pushes. And so she's like, we got to knock her all the way out. And it was crazy because when she knocked her out, Piper was fighting it. And I'm talking like it looked like she was having seizures because she was shaking so hard and fighting it so hard. So I stayed up with Piper by her head, and Allison helped Dr. Jess. And initially, I was trying to push the foal back so she could reach in there and get the legs. And there was no room. So Dr. Jess continued working, and she was able to get one chain on and then had Allison hold it. And then she got the other chain on, and I'm talking like she had to rest. And she worked her butt off. And when she was done, she had bruises on her wrist because it was so tight and there was so much pressure, and she had to fight it so hard to get those chains on that baby's legs. And so when she got the second chain on, she got one leg up, she got the second chain on, she got the other leg up, and I went to the back, and then Allison and her pulled them out, and I was sitting there, and it was a colt, and she pulled it out, and the head was by me and Dr. Jess, and then Allison, and Piper's knocked out, and I see the foal's mouth move and its nose move. And so then I started tickling its nostrils, and Dr. Moki was like, holy, adult word, it's alive. And she started compressing his chest, and she was just like, because she was taking a moment, which rightly so, she was taking a moment to catch her breath, to this was a big undertaking. And she's like, they're almost never alive. She is like, holy shit. So he comes to, which I wasn't too worried because I knew he had to have sleepy drugs in him too. Because Piper was knocked out, obviously it's going to go through her system, go through the placenta, and go to him, right? So he finally wakes up, and he's sitting there, and he's bright, and he's perky, and he wants mom. And she wakes up, and she was a little drunk. We were kind of concerned. She passed her placenta. It was 5:30 a.m. And we were all just and then after the fact, Dr. Moki said she literally was praying. She said, I was literally praying that I can do all things through Christ. She goes, I honestly didn't know if I could get it. She goes, I was back there praying the whole time, trying to get that baby out. She says, because I honestly didn't think it was going to happen, So because she persevered and pushed, we have a live foal and a live mare. And that is why, after some time and thought, I named Hero Hero, because if I had not been going to the barn every 2 hours to feed Hero, Piper probably would have went into labor. It would have probably been hours before I realized she was in labor. Because you look at your phone you look at the camera to watch, to see what's going on. And I try not to intervene, right? Because they're horses. You want them to do it. You want them to take care of it all. So I would have just let her be, and I would have been like, oh, she's in labor, she's good, But being out there, and thank God, Vic kept messing with her, because that's the only reason I went out too, is because I'm like, what's going on? Why are you messing with her? Quit touching her. So Hero is named Hero because I guarantee that if Hero wouldn't have been born first, there's a huge chance that Piper's baby would not have survived, and a large chance that Piper might not have survived, or there would have been complications and I would not have a healthy mare. So that is why Belle's baby is named Hero. So Monday, so this is Monday morning now, right? It's 5:30 in the morning. Dr. Moki goes home. Poor girl, still on call the rest of the week, Actually, I think, anyway, she had the whole full week of work. And so Monday, I start milking Piper, and I feed every 2 hours, and I milk out colostrum. I feed the baby, and he eats like a champ. This baby has so much life and so much like, hey guys, he's happy. But here's the kicker. He can't stand up. He can't stand up. When you go to stand him up, his legs are literally like noodles. They're like wet noodles. They just like hang. They're not contracted. But his back legs are stronger, but his front legs are like limp noodles. There's no strength in them. They just are floppy. So Monday, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to stress. He has sleepy drugs in him. I feed him every 2 hours, giving him colostrum, your mama's colostrum. I'm milking her every 2 hours. And thank goodness Hero started eating, because then I wasn't milking 2 mares. For a short time, I was milking 2, but then it wasn't. So I'm milking Piper every 2 hours, and I'm feeding him. And that was Monday. And then I call the vet. I go into the vet on Tuesday morning. I says, guys, this baby can't stand up. Like, his legs are not contracted, but he can't stand up. Like, I don't know what, I've never dealt with this, right? So I show him a video, and Dr. Schreiber is on call, Gary, and he's like, okay, I'll come out after work at 5. And, I says, okay, perfect. That's when we ran the IgG on Hero and realized he needed plasma. And I said, we'll run an IgG on Piper's baby, and then you can help me with the legs. The legs are like noodles. Like, what the heck, man? So Dr. Gary comes out, and we take care of Belle's baby. We had to run back in to get plasma for him, or had to run back in for something for him. They were completely surprised he needed it, but Piper's baby didn't need plasma, because thankfully I was able to, he eats like a champ. Like, he loves his bottle. Piper had amazing colostrum. I milked her every 2 hours. Perfect colostrum. Fed him. His IgG levels are perfect. They're great. So he didn't have to have plasma. So now we have one baby that had plasma, one baby that didn't need any. Hero got plasma twice. So Piper's baby is a colt, and he doesn't need plasma, but his front legs will not work. They're like wet noodles. We're like, what the heck? So Gary comes out, and he looks at everything, and he goes, okay. That's what he ran back to the vet clinic. He needed to get some PVC. So he had like 4-inch PVC, and they cut it in like 1/4, like half and then half again, right? And he made braces. And so we wrapped them with cotton, like the big fluffy cotton, so we don't get any pressure points, and then gauze, and then vet wrap, and then we put the braces on both front legs, PVC on the front all the way up almost to his chest, pretty high, and above the knee. And then we duct taped them, and he's like, okay, we'll assess this again in 2 days. And thankfully, with those braces, he was able to stand up. Now that was Tuesday night, and then Wednesday he would stand up and he would like slouch in them, kind of like you would lean on crutches, right? I'm like, okay, it just takes time to get stronger, so on and so forth. And so we took him back to the vet on Thursday, and that's when I was like, hey, my other baby's got diarrhea, you know, and Hero, we're dealing with the diarrhea, and Piper's baby, we're still dealing with, there's not a lot of strength. One leg is stronger than the other. His hind legs are okay, but there's weakness there. So when Gary put the braces on Piper's baby, it reminded me, if you've ever watched the movie Forrest Gump, and Forrest Gump had braces on his legs when he was young, and then he ended up running like the wind, right? And I said to Gary, I says, I think his name's gonna have to be Forrest. I says, not only is he special, and special in many different ways, but the braces just solidified it. So Piper's baby is named Forrest, and he is a beautiful blood bay, just like Piper. Big blaze, doesn't look like a paint. No paint colors on him, but that's okay. So his name is Forrest, and Forrest took, I had to milk her solid every 2 hours for 2 weeks. And he finally, when he was 2 weeks old, he finally latched on her because he finally had enough strength with the braces. And I would take the braces off and rewrap him every day. And I would take them off, and then I would like help him walk, essentially physical therapy. And we took him off every day and rewrapped him because we didn't want the pressure points and things like that. Even with doing that, you can still see on his legs where he had some, like where the hair rubbed off and then it regrew. But at 2 weeks, never nursing, never latching on mama, he finally had the strength to latch. So I still bottle fed him until he was like 2.5, 3 months old, but he would nurse on Piper. Unfortunately, right before he started latching, Piper got mastitis. Piper got mastitis in her bag, and it blows up fast. Like, it is like, I was out there every 2 hours, and clearly either something like, got dirty, didn't milk her out enough, who knows. But one side just literally, and now I learned real quick, like, the first sign of mastitis. So anyway, she got mastitis. I got Exceed in her, gave her some Banamine. She wasn't very happy about me milking her out, and I would just milk her out and dump it on the ground, but she let me. That was huge. She let me, even though it didn't feel good. But she also let him nurse. So we got the mastitis straightened up and cleaned up, but she just didn't have a ton of milk. We did try an additional, there's more to the story. I actually ended up with 2 other mares that weren't mine in the barn. And one of them, the owner picked up some special drugs that's supposed to help them make milk because he was worried his mare didn't have enough milk. Well, he didn't need it, so then I bought it from him, and I did give it to Piper, but it did not increase her milk supply. So it is what it is. But I did feed Forrest until he was about 3 months old, essentially. Did learn how to finally drink out of a bucket. But Forrest is a little smaller, but he's tall. And Forrest had braces on his legs. I think he was just about 2 months old because the right front leg was worse than the other one. So one of them, he was able to have the brace off about a month, like without having to put it back on. But the right one, it was been back and forth, on and off. He had special shoes to try to help him, because guys, his tendons were really loose. They weren't contracted. They were like too loose. Like, they just were spongy. And then with that being said, the back left hind got a little wonky. but it's his right front that's the worst. So I have a funny feeling it was like a compensating thing type of thing, when they don't get to use them properly. I think that was part of it. But he is on the road to straightness, if you will. Dr. Gary trims his feet every week. He trimmed his feet, and literally the next day he looked like a different horse. Like, he finally wasn't flopping over. He would knuckle over on the right front. I was like, it made all the world a difference. It was amazing. And I told Dr. Gary it was absolutely amazing. And when I brought him back a week later, he's like, wow, that looks really good. I'm like, no, you did that, and that's how good it's been looking since you did it. So super excited. It's always such a win when you make progress, and that's the biggest thing. As long as they're making progress, I'm happy. It might plateau for a minute, but as long as we get forward movement and not backward movement, right? That's all we need. Okay, so that's where Forrest is at. Forrest now is brace free. He still needs trimming. He's still not like 100%, but he's definitely on his way. We still don't have him like turned out in big pasture. We still keep him somewhat confined. He's like in a 2-acre area right now, but he does run, and he is full of it. And he would totally take a bottle if I took it out there, but I'm like, dude, you're a big boy now. You're a big boy. You gotta eat big boy stuff. All right. So now I think I'm going to go into our extra horses, our extra stories.